Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we will be obviously talking about this large system and the one that could be coming after this one. Historic, to say the least. The amounts of snow that will be falling that far to the south warrant no other word than historic. I usually try to avoid that. Unfortunately, in this case, it's pretty applicable. So a lot of snow for the west, for the south, for the Midwest, the Northeast, the Mid-South, I mean everywhere. And a lot of cold air. If you guys, before we get into this, would like to support this channel, consider subscribing. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You could also support it by clicking the thumbs up button. And if you didn't do that, then I guess I could try convincing you throughout the video. Okay, let's get into this. Okay, so I want to start off this video by looking at the total snowfall reports. I do want to say that let's actually decrease this to 24 hours. Keep it more real. Okay, so notice that, or more up to date, we did get a lot of snow across the west. I mean, you can see places around Seattle got well into the double digits. I don't know about Seattle itself, as they do have a snowfall report, but it's from 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's definitely, you can see 10 o'clock right there, southwest of Seattle, 7.5 inches. So up to a foot fell. I mean, it was a remarkable system, to say the least. Portland, similar amounts. There was a pretty sharp cutoff, though. And then notice that light snow events across the Midwest did drop several areas with some good amounts of snow. Notice where the lake enhancement occurred, there were heavier amounts. Look at that. Pretty heavy amounts across Wyoming and into Colorado, especially just north of the Colorado border into Wyoming. And a lake effect across Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, and the Lower Peninsula also added to pretty good amounts of snow. Alright, notice not much here yet, but they will soon start filling in. So let's start tracking this system. Before we do that, I just want to show you something. I mean, just look at this map. This is the National Weather Service for in terms of warnings and watches. Look how many people are under some sort of advisory, watch, or warning. So look, we have winter storm watches here, extending all the way into the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire, into New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Winter weather advisories further to the north and west, right? Winter weather advisories across Kansas. Further south, we have winter storm warnings. In the southern Nebraska, winter weather advisories. Notice the west, also a lot of jagged counties seeing different advisories, avalanche warnings, wind watches. And then obviously the cold to the north and some lake effect snow as well, potentially. And look at this. I mean, just incredible to see 100% of Oklahoma, almost 100% of Texas under a winter storm warning. And then notice 100% of Arkansas pushing into Tennessee, Mississippi, and portions of southern Louisiana. Again, a lot of snow is expected. Let's start talking about that. So this is the European model. Well, let's start tracking this system. I will show you the European model first, but I do want to say that for the European having such a good reputation with this system, it's done quite a bit of jumping around, and honestly, it's been more of a disappointment than not. I would say the GFS ensembles have done a pretty good job with this system, and this European is a bit, I would say, a bit less accurate than it used to be, or than it was with, say, previous systems in the winter. So, warning of caution with this one. Notice, as we track this through, by the way, most models agree that there's going to be a snowstorm. Just the exact track of it is still a bit different. Notice we start seeing the snow that, again, jumped a lot of snow to Seattle and still snowing there. Move across the mountains, the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, seeing snow, rain in the lower elevations of the valleys. We do have a bit of light snow across the Midwest and a bit of ice still occurring across the Northeast. So, while this doesn't look like much, this could be very dangerous. I mean, this is occurring right over New York City, Long Island, right? So even a little bit of ice could cause a havoc, and we saw that across Texas, and that was an unfortunate case of what could go wrong if the ice is there and people don't notice it, and we see a pile up. Not saying that that will happen, but definitely the conditions for the conditions that were available for one across Texas will be similar across New York and into portions of the Northeast. Notice that we have this system obviously starting to gather a lot of energy. It's very strong for being in the middle of the mountains, getting poked from all sides by these mountains. It's definitely getting stronger and more angry from that. And notice we start dragging up moisture. Almost a separate low pressure kind of comes up, very weak, and the main driving force will be a lot of this, and you can see the snow spilling in early tomorrow. This is 6 a.m. It will really start as early as midnight today across Kansas, Nebraska, and into panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, spilling into Oklahoma City, Amarillo, Lubbock. You know, a lot of those locations early Sunday morning. Kansas City potentially getting some light snow by tomorrow at around 12 o'clock noon. So this is lunchtime, brunch time. Some people are getting just getting up, and we see snow spilling further to the south, pretty intense. Right, notice we do have a lot of also rain across the southeast, which definitely is something to just mention, as that could be falling pretty heavily. Notice, but it won't be snow. We do see the snow across Dallas, probably pushing in around tomorrow during the afternoon hours. By tomorrow, 6 p.m. in the afternoon, it looks as if most of the area will be under snow. And then same with Oklahoma City, southern Kansas, also picking up quite a bit, but again, mainly towards the southern locations. Wichita definitely could pick up on a bit, but say cities like Topeka further to the north, maybe not so much. Notice that across Arkansas, we do start seeing the snow spilling in again late tomorrow. However, the bulk of this kind of staves off of Arkansas for a bit. Notice we kind of see the separation into two waves according to the European. Right, we see one further to the north across Indiana, Ohio as early as Monday morning. And then we have a very, very strong area of Gulf of Mexico enhanced snow, if you will. And this thing starts dumping snow across Dallas, right? Even into potentially Houston, some ice. If this is a bit colder than expected, you could see a bit more than what they're calling right now for it. Right now they're saying about less than an inch. But, 1 to 2 inch amounts could be probably found right outside of the city, while the coastal areas probably will struggle as the ocean will keep it a bit warmer, especially out ahead of the system. Notice that after this first wave passes through, that could already dump quite a bit of snow. We see this one, and look, Little Rock, right? Memphis, potentially right under the gun of this. Louisiana, Mississippi. And let me tell you that the European definitely is a model that takes us pretty far to the east in terms of the track of this band. You can see it takes it through Indiana, Kentucky, mainly through Kentucky. Southern Indiana does get a lot, just not the center of the heaviest snow, more into Ohio, Columbus, Nashville, getting in on some of that, starting off as a rain and then snow mix, getting into some ice and snow. Starting off as rain, then ice, and then into snow. Across the Northeast, you can see this continues strengthening, a lot of precipitation being dumped, not for the coastal areas. There could be quite a bit of ice, though, for northern New Jersey, maybe even Philadelphia. So that is definitely something that a lot of people would not like to see, but unfortunately, it seems to be a growing possibility, as this system most likely will not be bringing heavy snow to the coastal areas. As we push this into the Northeast, into Maine and southern Canada, obviously this dumps a lot of snow. Boston, another city that's right on the border of this, you may get a thud of heavy snow and then kind of transition over to some rain or ice. And that's, again, a growing possibility, as the European is just one model. And this tracks it off into southern Canada as the system kind of strengthens further. But it shouldn't be ridiculous amounts across the New Brunswick, Nova Scotia area. And just to mention that after this system, right, we see another one, the European, again, one of the few models that takes it very far to the east. Regarding this first system, let's take a look at it. The total amounts, this is assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, not the Kuchera amounts, which a lot of Texas, would be seeing more than what they're showing here. But I think that right where that rain is transitioning over to that snow, a lot of these amounts are probably accurate and even probably a bit higher than the National Weather Service thinks. And it's also pretty far to the south and east, especially, say, across the Mississippi area. This is one of the models that takes it pretty far to the south and east. It won't probably bring snow into Georgia, let alone maybe even Alabama, but there may be a bit, but not these heavy amounts. But look at that. If this were to formulate with the European style, a lot of snow here. Again, underdone here because of the lack of Kuchera. I do want to say that this second system people are mentioning, and I've been talking about for a few days, is looking, again, pretty interesting, especially since it could overlap the similar areas, leaving a lot of cities with a snowpack, like, say, Columbus, close to a foot, and cities like Cincinnati, maybe Memphis, over a foot, maybe even a foot and a half, right? So definitely something to watch for. Okay, let's take a look at the GDPS, the Canadian model. I think this one has done a really good job with the past systems. So let's see what it shows with this. Notice, right, similar feature. It's a southwest to northeast oriented storm. I do want to point out that for the folks living across northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, the systems will turn the winds off of Lake Michigan and really off of Superior as well and Huron. So there could be some lake effect And again, they could fall at some surprisingly heavy rates, and the amounts could range quite drastically. Right now, the National Weather Service is saying that the conditions are surprisingly actually pretty favorable for the lake effect, and some models show double digits amounts for these locations. I wouldn't say that's possible. I wouldn't say that's going to happen, but definitely something to watch for the lake effect, as it could be heavy and strong. And even if it's for a short amount of time, it could dump, 1 to 3 inches within 1 to 3 hours, and there will be several hours of that going on, and actually several days, as this is the first system, right? The Canadian, you could see, drops quite a bit of snow to Kuchera amounts, probably a bit more realistic across these locations, and brings it, good amounts into Mississippi and northern Alabama, extreme northwestern Alabama, and more like the northwestern half, I would say third of Mississippi. These may be underdone in some locations, but here I would say that's more accurate. And again, heavy snow for Ohio, upstate Pennsylvania, New York, and southern Canada. The large cities, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec, picking up pretty good amounts of snow. Again, for the detailed information across the U.S., especially with such a historic event, go to the National Weather Service across Canada, go to Environmental Canada, as they will have the best details and information. I'm here just to kind of provide my own opinions and just have a weather discussion. For those wondering about that second system, it could honestly prove even bigger than the first one. I mean, it may have a different track, but across the south, it could kind of do a similar dance through. And notice, pile up even more snow. And if you were to add on the Kuchera, you could see it really piles up across the northeast. Maybe not the coastal areas again, but pretty close. Albany, right, Binghamton, Pittsburgh picking up snow, Cleveland, and up into southern Canada. Notice lake effect. See those amounts? Mostly offshore still, though, could be pretty heavy amounts onshore, assuming that the track of the storm is what the Canadian shows. And then the pattern does continue to be active, but maybe favoring more towards the west. Say Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. Okay, so that's the GDPS. Let's quickly just run through a bunch of models right now. Again, I think the GFS ensembles are the best, and I'll show you what the GFS model thinks. I wouldn't say this is, set in stone what's going to happen, but if any model were to be correct, it's probably this one, and I think the National Weather Service is basing a lot of their forecasts off of this, and if I'll show you the National Weather Service amounts, this is a lot of what they're showing, right? Heavier amounts to the north and east, a little bit of a break here, and then heavier amounts here. I think a lot of this snow here will fall within the 4 to 6 inch range. I don't think there will be, 2 inches, just in kind of random locations. But I do think there will be, kind of a favorite spot across Texas, Oklahoma, potentially up to a foot, and then maybe a bit of a 4 to 6 inch range before some heavier amounts start redeveloping across Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. Again, you can see it does vary a bit in track compared to the other models, but generally pretty darn good, right? Coastal areas not picking up anything, southern Canada picking up quite a bit, and the lakes also dumping a bit of snow, and out into the west, more snow, especially for the mountains, not necessarily Seattle or the lower elevated areas again. And that second system, the GFS, also takes a bit further to the north and west, and it dumps a lot of snow, especially across Canada. You can see the snowfall ratios are pretty high. And in the long range, just for those that are interested, notice that the snow piles on, especially to the north, and they do show some more systems. Okay, so out of the two systems combined, you can see Missouri, Illinois, they see a lot of snow. So, Arkansas, Oklahoma, probably a bit overdone in some locations, but that's what they're showing as of now. Regarding the European GFS parallel, a model that rivals the European model in accuracy from the GFS family, notice that it does show this system developing right into today, tomorrow, very quickly. Very good snow amounts, definitely on the heavier side. I mean, you can see that it shows widespread amounts over 7 inches across Arkansas into Tennessee, northern Mississippi. Well, I don't think that the system will be so heavy as an overall whole, but I do think that there will be pockets of overperformance across certain locations, and where those pockets line up is just impossible to tell. But again, maybe the National Weather Service could give you a little bit more insight on that. Notice Canadian areas picking up quite a bit with all the models, and the inland northeast area, so that's pretty consistent. That's good. And you can see that with that second system, the parallel definitely shows quite some high amounts. Again, probably over exaggerated, but generally the same track, south to northeast, southwest, northeast. And I noticed in a long range, it also piles up a bit of more snow, but this time further to the north, filling in that kind of hole. I do want to look at a high-res model. This is the RAP, goes out to 51 hours. Let's just go over the timing a bit more carefully of this system. Again, this video is probably going to be a bit longer, hopefully still in a reasonable time frame, but we have so much to cover. Notice two systems pulling away that dropped a bit of snow. And look at that across the Midwest tonight, already starting to, I should say, the Southern Plains and Midwest. Starting to dump snow across Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, quickly filling in and starting to pick up precip from the southern Gulf of Mexico, or sorry, northern Gulf of Mexico. And notice that, again, it starts really intensifying right here. This snow will be falling, and it will be fluffy, so it will be accumulating pretty quickly. But again, this is kind of the first wave, probably weaker. And you can see this spills into even potentially Illinois by late tomorrow, Indiana, Ohio, right? Apologize about that. Stomping up there. Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Missouri picking up some snow as well. But again, it looks as if the second phase, which the RAP model, shows very far to the south. Houston probably seeing a sleet storm, more of a snow mix as well, potentially getting in there. If something like this were to unfold, some higher amounts of 1 to 3 are possible. And then notice that it does track the system very far to the south and east, into portions of Mississippi and Alabama, rather than say Arkansas. But still, you'll pick up snow in Arkansas and Little Rock and Memphis and Nashville, just maybe not as much. Or I should say, this will probably favor cities like Nashville and Kentucky more than what the other models are showing. Again, the exact track is still a bit iffy, but notice that through this time frame, through 51 hours, let's just cut this off and show the Kuchera. So again, not fully done across the Northeast, just beginning. But look at that, decent amount, especially to the north where the ratios are high. And if we were to see such a prevalent southern band, we could pick up some decent amounts. Probably not over foot, but over 6 inches. Maybe even getting towards the coastal areas, especially across, say, Louisiana. Lake effect right there, looking definitely interesting to say the least. And into Ohio and southern Canada, just beginning to unfold there at this time, 51 hours, which is late Monday and into early Tuesday. Well, at this point, 00Z Tuesday is 6 p.m. Monday. So, again, a lot of snow, right? And this is assuming a Kuchera ratio. Let me show you what the National Weather Service thinks in terms of total snowfall. So this is what the National Weather Service forecast is put out, but in a model kind of format, which I could run through, which is a very cool feature on weathermodels.com. And notice that, let's just run through this. 72 hours, it takes the system fully through the Northeast. Notice, right, it doesn't show any pockets of extremely heavy snow, but that's, again, because some models show that, some models don't. They did account for some heavier snow across, say, Memphis. You could see 7, 8 inches, over half a foot, to Kentucky, to southern Indiana. And this is assuming a proper ratio, which the National Weather Service accounted for in their forecast. And, I mean, regardless, Dallas, potentially 6 inches, Oklahoma, 8, Amarillo, 6 inches, and into southeastern Kansas and southern Kansas, potentially getting close to 6 inches as well. I would say this forecast definitely is of higher accuracy for this area. Probably gets more inaccurate over here, but look at these amounts up here. Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. I mean, potentially well over a foot as you get into, especially closer to the lakes. It does cut off right here because it doesn't go that far out and still adding on, so potentially a lot of areas seeing over a foot. Here, again, it could be an area of either kind of underproducing or overproducing. Regardless, 4, 5, 6 inches is really not much more than you'd want to get if you live across Tennessee and Arkansas. You probably don't get to shovel snow that often, but 6 inches of snow is a lot. And honestly, even I myself forgot how much 6 inches was. And I live in Chicago. We hadn't had a 6-inch event in, I think, over almost 2 years. This year we did, but up until then, I wanted 6 inches. I wanted a foot, but now I'm kind of like, okay, you know, it's fun, a foot of snow, but it's really hard to shovel, and it gets more. I love shoveling. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but even 6 inches of heavy wet snow, which a lot of this will fall as heavier wet snow, will just be something you wouldn't want. And also for the safety of houses, power lines, and trees, which some may be already budding, especially across Alabama and Mississippi. I looked at the spring index, and it did bring it pretty far to the north already, the first blossom. So again, this is also historic in a sense that it's occurring so late on into the season, but this is just the first system. A lot of these locations may pick up similar amounts of snow, or if not more, from the second event. So that is definitely something to point out as well. Okay, so I showed you many models. I showed you what the National Weather Service thinks. I do want to quickly show you the ensemble disagreement, and you can see this is the European 5-day snowfall. So this is just the first event. And let me just run it through. So this is the European ECMWF, right? Look at that. Very heavier snow, right? This one, similar track, lighter amount. So let me just run through this and just show you the variation. You can see anywhere above the purple or anywhere in the purple color or darker is a 6 inches plus, and anywhere in the pink is up to a foot. And then notice that we continue seeing this variance, right? Some bring it further to the south across Mississippi. Some center it more across Little Rock. Quite a bit do, right? And again, this just continues, this variance and this disagreement. And this is assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, which is already impressive. You know, if a 10-to-1 inch ratio, 6 inches, 7 right here, that would probably drop Oklahoma City 12 inches if this model were to be correct. So, you know, this system has a lot of potential to overperform. Now, from the second system, obviously the confidence is much lower, and you can see some models show system further to the north and west, some orient it more of west to east. We'll have to see. Again, disagreement is definitely there and pretty high, but I wouldn't say anything unusual, especially for these large systems. In terms of the GFS disagreement, let's take a look at this. And now we have all the models shown at once, so it's a kind of a cool little feature. Notice 31 ensembles. What we see here is a lot of, okay, so this is the first system, right? Still quite a bit of disagreement. Some showing more heavier mounts into, say, western central Texas, while others cut that off, bring it more into Mississippi, Louisiana. Just find your location. Look at that. Some show an extreme system. Some show something less, but again, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, this is probably a decent event still. Something like that is something you wouldn't want, honestly, especially since it's that far to the south, and such heavy wet snow, especially by, you know, the coastal areas. Maybe not so much Dallas or further north and west. It will be more of a fluffy snow. And then look at this, the GFS ensembles. I'm telling you, look at what they're showing with that second system. Many areas picking up equally or even higher amounts of snow, putting several areas across Arkansas, Louisiana, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas in, you know, the snowpack range of 20 inches, as there won't be any chance for the snow to melt as we have the second snowstorm. After that happens, though, obviously no snow is added on and warm temperatures come through. Regarding the Midwest, I do want to quickly show you the Mid-Atlantic area, which you may think it's just like the DC area. The region on weathermodels.com for the Mid-Atlantic is pretty big. Okay, this website freezes up way too often for when I try flipping these regions. GFS, let's take a look at the Mid-Atlantic. Where are you? There you go. Just so I can show you the ensemble disagreement, but further to the north. Come on, load. All right, so I got it to load after a while, and you can see that we have kind of the rest of the area up here in this ensemble. And notice that we do have quite a bit of disagreement in terms of amounts. Really, the track is pretty spot on. Some show, you can see very heavy amounts into Kentucky, Ohio. Some show quite a bit less and further to the east, for example. And then we have kind of the more moderate scenarios, which I think will probably be something more applicable. Probably something like this, but even that, you know, shows quite a bit more snow than what the National Weather Service is calling for. But again, they're not perfect. They're still adjusting their forecasts. And with that second system, you can see a lot happens as well, just a bit further to the north and west, but still some take it pretty far to the south and east, which would overline it with the same areas that got this first system. So a lot of snow. Stay safe, guys. This is going to be a historic event. Hopefully it won't feel historic across your area, but notice that a lot of people are under this. So stay safe, stay tuned, and I'll catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.